We're now in our lectures on roles, and this is part one. Here we will discuss that John Rawls is in continuity with Kant's philosophy of rational freedom. The problem of moral arbitrariness will be presented as central, as well as the problem of desert. Desert, as in what a person deserves by their labor, more specifically. Could also be what persons deserve by their trespasses, which would be a discussion of punishment. But our discussion of desert will be with regard to income distribution, as is our whole discussion of roles, and we have started thinking about this theme of income distribution when we talked about libertarians as well as utilitarians. So anyway, the problem of moral arbitrariness is central for roles, as well as the problem of desert. There is going to be a solution offered to the problem of desert, and that solution goes by the name of entitlements. Entitlements here are roughly an equivalent of rights. Kant theorized that a country must have laws that respect the freedom and dignity of each rational person, and that each rational person ought to be able to agree to such laws, a kind of a social contract. However, it would not be a social contract consisting of whatever laws everyone feels like having, according to their desires and self-interest based on them, but rather according to the rational nature of each person. John Rawls works out what the Kantian project looks like in a way that is of interest to us. He gives an interpretation of what a social contract of desiring and rational beings looks like. Rationality here comes to mean fairness. What is fair is rational. Rationality here is not conceived in the same way as in Kant. Here, rationality includes desire and self-interest, whereas Kant really excluded it. Yet, this position is Kantian to the extent that it's trying to think about what would be rational, and also with regard to what rational freedom is like. Rawlsian fairness, paradoxically, relies on the notion of moral desert, as in one deserves the products of one's labor due to one's labor, but admits that this notion has a very limited application to human affairs due to moral arbitrariness of desert in human affairs. Thus, the notion of desert needs to be replaced with the notion of entitlement. There's a paradoxical reliance on the notion of desert in that we are thinking about it as the foundation of what we're doing, but we're also acknowledging that it has severe limits and needs to be replaced with the notion of entitlement. But at the same time, we wouldn't get to this notion of entitlement unless we first reflected upon this problematic notion of desert. Moral arbitrariness here refers to what we have seen as the contingency criticism of libertarianism, that all sorts of factors due to and not deserved by one's labor are present and determine the productivity of one's labor. Factors such as where one is born, what kind of natural talents one has, what kind of family one is born into, what kind of social circumstances, all of that is morally arbitrary, not one's own doing. Entitlement here should not be taken in the colloquial sense of undeserved privilege. We have this bad sense of using the term entitlement, as in someone thinks they're entitled to something, almost as if it's undeserved. Well, entitlement here should not be taken in the colloquial sense of undeserved privilege, but is instead the direct opposite. What can be said to be legitimately one's own after the notion of moral desert has been made problematic by moral arbitrariness.